They say the sun sets slower in Ashmoor, like it's afraid of what comes after dark. I didn't believe that when I first drove in, not until the day the light didn't come back. My name's Eli Moran, former detective. I came to Ashmoor looking for peace, not ghosts. The town's population barely broke 500, and the roads were so narrow even the crows avoided them. I rented a cabin near the edge of the forest, the kind of place where you can hear your own heartbeat at night. The first few days were uneventful. Locals stared but didn't talk much. The only one who seemed friendly was June, who ran the diner. She warned me not to drive after dusk. "Not safe on the roads," she said, "and not just 'cause of deer." I laughed it off. On my 5th night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch watching the fog crawl in like spilled milk. That's when I saw it. A man standing by the dirt road. No flashlight, no car, just standing there. At first, I thought he was lost. I called out. He didn't move. Then he turned his head just enough for the porch light to hit his face. His skin was grayish, like he'd been out in the cold too long. His eyes caught the light wrong, glassy and hollow, like he wasn't really seeing me. I blinked. He was gone. The next morning, I drove into town and asked around. Nobody knew him. When I described the face, June stopped wiping the counter. "Don't go saying things like that," she muttered. "Like what?" She nodded toward the window. "Like you saw him." Turns out, in Ashmoor, he was an old story. The Dusk Man, a figure people claimed to see when someone was about to vanish. That afternoon, Sheriff Calder came by my cabin. Big guy, polite but tense. "You new here?" "Just a few days," I said. "Then you don't know the rules yet." He tapped his badge and added, "No one's out after sundown. Not for walks, not for cigarettes, not for anything." When I asked why, he just said, "Because some things don't like the dark and some things are the dark." That night, I stayed inside. But around 11 p.m., I heard footsteps on the gravel outside my cabin. Slow, deliberate. Then a knock, 3 taps, soft, almost polite. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The knock came again, harder this time, then a voice, low and distant. "You shouldn't have looked." I grabbed my flashlight, but when I turned it on, the power cut out. The cabin went black. My heart thudded so loud I could feel it in my throat. I waited. The footsteps retreated. Silence. When morning came, I found 3 handprints on my front door. Each one burned into the wood, black as if left by ash. I drove into town to find Sheriff Calder, but the station was empty. I checked the diner. Closed. The whole town looked deserted. Then I saw June's car. The driver's door was open, engine still running. Her purse was on the seat. And on the dashboard, a small scrap of paper, written in ash. "You weren't supposed to see him, Eli." By the time I found June's car, the fog had thickened into a white wall. I called her name. No answer. Just the hum of the running engine and the faint ticking of the dashboard clock. I pocketed the ash note and killed the ignition. The air smelled faintly of burnt wood, like someone had been lighting matches nearby. When I reached the diner, the front door was unlocked. The lights flickered, casting long shadows across the counter. June's coffee cup still sat on the table, steam rising from it, as if she'd been there moments ago. Something about that steam chilled me more than an empty room ever could. Behind the counter, I found her phone. The last photo in her gallery was taken just before midnight. The diner window reflected a dark shape behind her. No face. No details. Just a tall figure standing in the road. The same figure I'd seen outside my cabin. I left the diner and went straight to the sheriff's office. Calder's cruiser was parked out front, but the building was dark inside. The radio on his desk buzzed softly, cycling through static until a faint voice broke through. "He's walking again. The sun's late today." Then silence. Outside, the light dimmed, even though it was only noon. The town square looked wrong. shadows stretching farther than they should, bending at impossible angles. I tried calling the nearest city station, but the phone line crackled, and the operator's voice came through distorted. Ashmoor? No such listing. It was like the town didn't exist anymore. That's when I heard the bell, the church bell at the end of Main Street, ringing slow and hollow. But no one had used that bell in years. I followed the sound. The door to the old church was wide open, and the air inside smelled of dust and candle wax. Rows of wooden pews faced a single painting at the altar, the crucifixion scene, except the face of Christ had been scratched out and replaced with a hollow oval, black as soot. And beneath it, carved into the altar wood, were words that made my stomach drop. "He walks when the sun forgets." I turned around at the sound of movement, a creak of wood, soft footsteps on the old floor. "Sheriff Calder?" I called. No answer. A tall shadow stretched across the pews, moving slowly toward me. I raised my flashlight and froze. It wasn't a person. It was a shape, human but stretched thin like smoke given form. It pulsed with faint orange light as if embers burned inside it. I stumbled backward, the beam shaking in my hand. The thing tilted its head, then whispered, not out loud but inside my skull, "You brought the dark with you." The floorboards cracked beneath my boots as I ran. When I reached the door, I saw Sheriff Calder standing outside, shotgun in hand. His eyes were bloodshot, face pale. "You saw him, didn't you?" he said. "What the hell is that thing?" I demanded. He didn't answer, just pulled me by the arm toward his cruiser. "Get in." We drove fast, leaving the church and its shadows behind. When I finally caught my breath, I asked again. Calder's jaw tightened. "You ever wonder why this town don't have graves?" "What?" "No cemetery, no funerals. We bury 'em in the forest, deep, away from the light." He looked at me with a face I'll never forget. Because if the sun touches them, they don't stay buried. I thought he was losing his mind, until I saw it myself. Up ahead, just beyond the trees, something was moving in the dirt, freshly dug mounds shifting like something underneath was pushing up. Calder stopped the car and handed me a flashlight. "If June's gone, she'll be here." We stepped out into the fog. The forest floor was soft, sinking with every step. Then between the graves I saw her, June's face half buried in the soil, eyes open, lips moving. She wasn't breathing, but she was whispering. I leaned closer. Her mouth trembled. One word slipped out, raspy and weak. "Run!" The ground beneath her collapsed, and dozens of hands burst from the soil, pale and burned, reaching for us. Calder fired his shotgun, and I ran until the fog swallowed everything. When I finally stopped, my flashlight flickered. The beam caught something on a nearby tree. A mark burned into the bark. 3 black handprints. And beneath them, fresh words scratched into the wood. "The sun won't rise tomorrow." We didn't go back to town that night. Calder drove until the fog grew too thick, then parked near an old logging road. The headlights cut through the mist like blades, showing nothing but trees and the winding path ahead. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "You think I'm crazy?" he said quietly. "I think you know something you're not saying," I replied. He stared ahead, exhaling slow. Ashmoor wasn't always like this. Used to be a mining town. Then one summer, the miners dug too deep and found something. He took another drag, eyes dark. They sealed the mine, burned the records, built the church right on top of it. Called it sanctification, but it wasn't holy. It was a warning. My skin crawled. "And what about the burials?" He hesitated. "When someone dies here, we don't bury him to rest. We bury him to keep him from walking. The town elders started that long ago. Said if we ever stopped, the ground would give him back." He looked at me. "And now, I think it has." Before I could respond, the car radio crackled to life. No station, no voice, just whispers. Soft and rhythmic, like breathing through static. Then a single word came clear through the distortion. Eli. My blood went cold. It said my name. I reached for the radio dial, but it turned itself off. The engine sputtered, lights flickered, and the night went dead silent. Calder opened the glove compartment and handed me a flashlight. "We're not safe in the car. The dark feeds it." We stepped out. The air smelled of rain and burnt ash again, that same scent from June's car. Every step crunched over dry leaves that seemed to whisper as we passed. Then we saw it, light, faint and flickering deeper in the woods. Someone had lit a lantern. We followed it, keeping low. The light led us to a clearing, and there, around a pit of smoking soil, stood 4 people wearing ash-gray robes. One of them was the mayor. They were chanting, low and broken, their words half swallowed by the fog. "The sun forgets, the soil remembers. Keep him sleeping, keep him below." In the center of the pit, something shifted. A mound of earth rising and falling, like it was breathing. My stomach twisted. "What the hell is that?" I whispered. Calder raised his shotgun. "That's what's left of the miners." The chanting stopped. Every head turned toward us. The mayor's eyes glowed faintly, veins crawling across her skin like cracks in burnt clay. "You shouldn't have stayed the night," she said, voice layered with something else. Deeper, hollow. The ground trembled, and from the pit, a shape began to rise. A human form made of soot and bone, eyes glowing amber like burning coal. Calder fired once, but the blast passed through it like smoke. The creature twisted, the air rippling around it. Every tree, every shadow seemed to lean toward it, as if the forest itself was bowing. Then, a whisper again, echoing inside my skull. "You brought the sun with you." Suddenly I realized the fog wasn't natural. It was hiding the town from sunlight, keeping that thing alive. I turned to Calder. "If we clear the fog—" He shook his head. "It'll burn half the town with it." The figure in the pit reached toward me. My flashlight flickered, beam trembling. For a second I saw a face, June's face, twisted in pain, whispering beneath its skin. I screamed her name, but the thing only hissed, voice stretching into dozens. "She's with us now." Then the mayor raised her hand, and the fog collapsed inward like a wave. Calder grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the road. The air around us grew hot, crackling with invisible fire. When we finally burst from the trees, the first hint of dawn broke the horizon. The fog hissed as sunlight hit it, burning away in patches. The creature shrieked, its body dissolving into smoke. But before it vanished, its eyes locked on me, burning, hateful. "If the sun remembers, the soil will hunger." Then it was gone. We stood there, breathing hard. The fog lifted. For the first time in years, Ashmoor saw sunlight. Calder looked at me. "It's not over," he said. "They'll bury again tonight. They always do." I didn't answer, because behind us, the church bell began to ring again, slow and steady. The shadow of the steeple stretched across the forest floor. And in the daylight, I saw what was really under the trees, dozens of mounds, each one pulsing faintly, as if the earth itself had a heartbeat. The bell wouldn't stop ringing. Its sound rolled through the valley, deep and metallic, shaking the windows of every house in Ashmoor. It was dawn, but the sun looked wrong, pale, weak, like it was afraid to shine on this place. Calder and I stood on the hill overlooking the town. Smoke rose from several chimneys, and figures were already moving in the streets, gray silhouettes carrying shovels, heading toward the church. "They're burying again," Calder muttered, "covering up what we burned." I clenched my fists. "We can't let them." He looked at me with that same tired grief. "You can't stop an entire town that's built on a lie." But I didn't care. June's face, that thing wearing her skin, was still burned into my mind. Whatever had taken her, whatever the town had buried, I had to end it. We headed down the road as the fog began creeping back, rolling between the houses like slow smoke. The closer we got to the church, the heavier the air became. The ground itself seemed to breathe. Inside the churchyard, the mayor and the others had already gathered. Dozens of townsfolk stood in a half-circle, whispering prayers I couldn't understand. A fresh grave was open at the center, and at its edge lay a coffin, unburied. The lid creaked, and from inside, fingers reached out. I froze. Someone was alive in there. The mayor raised her hand. "The sun remembers," she said, "so we must make it forget." Before she could finish, Calder fired. The blast shattered the stillness, sending everyone into chaos. I ran forward, grabbed the shovel, and slammed it into the coffin lid. The wood cracked, and a pair of terrified eyes stared back at me. It wasn't June. It was a man, his face pale, his mouth sewn shut with ash-stained thread. I tore the stitches loose. He gasped for air, choking. They said it needs to eat the living now," he whispered. The ground shook violently. The fog turned black. From beneath the church, something began to move, a rumble that grew louder, closer. The mayor screamed, "He wakes!" Then the floor split open. A wave of heat poured out, stinking of rot and iron. The earth cracked apart, and a massive charred hand clawed its way out, long fingers dripping molten soil. Calder pulled me back as the thing rose, a body made of burned earth and bone, veins glowing red like magma. Its mouth opened wide, and a voice thundered through the valley. "You took my light. Now I'll take yours." The sky dimmed. The pale sun flickered, fading like a dying bulb. Calder handed me something, a matchbook. "The fog burns," he said. "That's the only way." He ran toward the church, kicking over lanterns, dousing the steps in fuel. I followed, my hands shaking. We lit the first match together. The flame caught instantly, bright orange against the black mist. The fire spread across the churchyard, racing through the grass and up the wooden walls. The air filled with screams, human and not. The creature staggered, burning, its voice splitting into 100 shrieks. But the fire wasn't enough. The fog still thickened, feeding it. Then Calder did something I'll never forget. He stepped into the blaze, clutching a flare from his belt. "Go!" he shouted. "If it eats me, maybe it'll sleep again." "Calder, no!" He struck the flare. The light flared white-hot, brighter than the sun itself. The creature lunged at him, and for 1 second, the entire world turned to fire. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. Real morning. The fog was gone. The church was a blackened ruin, and Calder was nowhere. The mayor's body lay near the ashes, her eyes hollow, skin cracked. The rest of the town, gone. Empty houses, silent streets. I stood alone in the middle of Ashmoor, staring at the sunrise. It was the first full light the town had seen in decades, and yet it felt cold. Something shifted beneath my boots. I looked down. The soil was still moving, pulsing faintly, and in the distance, deep below the burnt church, I heard a slow heartbeat. Ba-dum, ba-dum. I turned and walked away, leaving the town to its ghosts. But as I reached the sign on the main road, "Welcome to Ashmoor, where the sun always rises," the paint began to peel by itself, flaking away in the wind. Underneath the faded letters, something older was carved into the wood. "The sun forgets, the soil remembers,